Adam Scott, welcome to Q.
Thanks for having me.
Gladly. So your character's look says a lot about him right from the outset with the goatee and
Yeah.
everything. Can you describe Alex for us?
Yeah, Alex is kind of like how I feel a lot of the time. Alex is new to town, so he doesn't know anybody. So, already he's a little out of sorts. They've moved to Los Angeles for his wife's job. None of this is really said in the movie. It's just sort of implied. It's kind of what we decided is that they moved there for his Taylor Schilling's job, and so he's just kind of hanging out at home with his son and doesn't have any friends and doesn't know anybody. And Los Angeles is a huge, sprawling, confusing place. I remember when I moved there, moved to Pasadena when I was 18 to go to school, and I didn't have a car. I didn't know anybody. It was really scary. Alex isn't 18 and he's a grown up, but he's also sort of, he doesn't feel comfortable. He's a real beta male. I think that's kind of his default position. And he's just sort of most comfortable when he has his wife and his son there. Other than that, he's a little unsure of his place and how he should behave and how and just kind of where he fits,
And you said you feel like that most of the time?
I mean, I don't know. When I place someone like this, I feel like I know what that feels like. I don't feel like that all of the time, but it's almost like I wonder if I really just sat down and thought about it for 7 minutes, if by the end of just thinking about nothing but that, if I would just be that guy, I guess that's what I fear. But also, here's the thing. Alex has a body issue that sort of, colors everything.
It's kind of what's that bottom.
Yeah, we get to it much later in the movie, but it's another factor.
And we'll get there in this interview.
Okay.
Too.
All right.
Can you describe the dynamic between the two couples, Alex and his wife, and the couple they meet?
Sure. We meet Jason Schwartzman and his little boy at the park, and his little boy and our boy start playing, and they invite us over for a dinner party / play date. And so Jason and Judith Godresh's couple is a much more secure, outgoing, sort of LA hipster couple. They're that couple you meet that seem to have it all figured out. They've got it all wired. Everything from like their cool socks to their car is just that right blend of sort of a nod to vintagey irony, and it's, for whatever reason, somehow it's brand new and it has all this cool technology. They just have it all figured out, and they kind of behave as if it's all an afterthought and they don't care. Like we just want to be everything that they are. And who better to play the epitome of that kind of guy than Jason Schwartzman? And Judith is great at just kind of that effortless, sexy, cool thing. They're very, they're a little hipstery, a little bit.
Yeah. And you guys you kind of aspire to be like them, your character and your character's wife.
If not, I don't know if we aspire to be like them, but they're certainly an attractive. I almost feel like our Taylor and my character, we've never really set out to be a particular type of person. We're just sort of reacting and catching up with our lives. And then we see these fresh-faced, beautiful people in this big, glamorous city. And it's like, wow, yeah, why aren't we like that? What happened to us?
They seem to have that world figured out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Your character is obviously uncomfortable with the vibe, like in that scene we just played.
Yeah.
Why does he stick around?
You know, that was a big question when I first read the script, because me, maybe when I was 22, I would stick around just because I would have no idea, that there were other options. But as a grown up, I just sort of like when I'm not feeling it, I just leave. There's a certain freedom in kind of getting older and knowing you can just walk out of the room and not come back, and who cares?
Yeah.
But so that was the question, and then the day we shot the first scene with all four of us, we never had any rehearsal time or even time to sit down and really talk about any of it too much. Patrick, the director, said, kind of talked to the actors individually. But we shot the first scene with the four of us, and I saw Jason play this part, and I saw he and Judith together, and I thought, well, the question of why do we stay is answered. It's because these are two incredibly charming, seductive people. On the page, they felt a little creepy, but then you hand it over to them, and
they play with the right amount.
They
play with the right amount of charm.
Yeah,
that they are compelling.
And I would stick around.
Okay, I want to get to some of these body issues that you mentioned earlier. We don't hear a lot about men and body image.
Yeah,
was this a conversation that came up a lot when you were making the overnight?
It's something that really struck me when I first read it. I thought, wow, I haven't seen this represented a lot in popular entertainment. It just isn't. And I know I had my own body issues growing up. I was an overweight kid in junior high school, which is a really tough age to be different and kind of unattractive to girls. From I guess late elementary school right up until about high school, I was an overweight kid, and it was tough. It was a really hard time, and in a lot of ways, I feel like it's sort of colored the rest of my life and kind of how I feel about myself in a lot of ways. That sort of stuff in those formative years really affects you in that way. And I think for Alex, it's similar. It's really shaded a lot of his sort of self-image. So yeah, we talked about it, but I think it was written really well. So where we really figured it out was just in shooting it and playing it.
It's interesting how this show shakes down sometimes. Your character in this movie has a small penis issue. And yesterday on the show, we had the winner of the smallest penis in Brooklyn pageant.
You did?
We did.
Okay, it's funny because Jason and I were asked to judge that contest or be a couple of the judges, whatever they were doing.
Yeah.
And we couldn't figure out how to make it work with our schedule with the thing, and we didn't know if it was too much to do that with the movie or whatever. But what was that like?
It was super interesting because the most interesting thing for me was the fact that this contest was started by a woman trying to help a former partner. Well, the issue of men's body issues came up with a former partner, and so she wanted to throw this pageant to sort of help men with their body image issues. And
that's great.
Yeah, it's really, really fascinating. And it helped this guy in his life. He actually lost last year.
Oh, that's amazing.
And went back. And so it's funny how things shake down this show, because this is a conversation that we're having again.
Yeah.
And it's not a conversation that we barely ever have.
So what about the guy who wins? Is he, what does he say?
So he says the reason why he went back was because it was a lot of fun, and the spirit of it is positive, and it's saying, listen, there are some guys that have small members, but they're charming, they're fun, they're attractive, they can still be, all these things.
Yeah.
And it was the first time it's come up for me on this show, men's body issues.
Yeah.
all the issues at bottom there are really, really interesting, and the same ones come up in your film.
Yeah. I think it's really interesting too, and I was a little startled by it when I read it and wasn't sure if it was something I wanted to do. But I also just thought it was kind of fascinating, and I hadn't seen it before, so why not? And I kind of feel like if I have that reaction to something, maybe there's something there. Like maybe we should shoot it and see what it's like, and maybe it'll strike a chord with somebody.
Okay, let me ask you about your own experience with that, because you've been naked in a few roles.
Yeah.
What's it like doing a nude scene?
It's weird. In this, we were dreading it, Jason and I, for the scene where we're both jumping around and we're naked. But then the day came, and it was like right in the middle of the shoot. We shot the whole movie in 12 days. 10 of those were nights where we would go to work at 6 p.m. and go home at 6 a.m. So it was the middle of the night. We put on these prosthetic penises, and suddenly we were far more comfortable than we thought we were going to be. I guess we both thought it would feel like a nude scene, like you're naked in front of the crew and the cast and everybody. But since it was fake, there was this psychological barrier that went up, which was, well, it's just like having a really interesting pair of shorts on more than being nude, because it wasn't me. It was an illusion of sorts. And so we were both like pretty down with it. We were like just hanging out, literally, but just kind of not caring. It was kind of great.
What about in general, looking at yourself on screen?
Yeah. I'm used to it now. As far as nudity goes, though, I guess I'll probably never get used to that. So yeah, it's strange seeing it in the movie. I wish I was like in better shape. It's a bummer, but it's fun. Whatever.
You have some brilliant exchanges, comic exchanges with Jason Schwartzman in this movie. You seem pretty at home in comedy, but you always wanted to be a leading man in dramas, kind of Ethan Hawke. You said before.
That's right.
Why did you want that?
You know what? It's funny because when I first got interested in acting, I was a little kid, and it was Harrison Ford. It was Indiana Jones and Han Solo and Luke Skywalker, Mark Hamill, and then and concurrently it was Steve Martin, and it was John Belushi and Dan Aykroyd and Chevy Chase and all those guys. And then Woody, and then my mom introduced me to Woody Allen and Monty Python. And so I always had these dreams of being this, like, and then in high school, I discovered De Niro and Pacino and Scorsese and all the Coppola movies and everything. And so I had these two kind of concurrent things. I was always kind of this comedy nerd. Oh, I also discovered David Letterman in the 80s and would watch his show every single night without fail. All we had in our house was a 5-inch black and white TV I had in my room because it was a gift that I got for Christmas. So I would watch for hours every single night, and Letterman and Carson. And so I became this Letterman fanatic, and I wrote letters and all of that. So I wanted to be the dramatic, like De Niro and Pacino. And I just said recently, I at one point even wanted to change my name when I was in acting school when I was like 20. My mother's maiden name is Quartararo, and I thought that was too long, so I shortened it to Cordero. So it sounded like Italian, like Pacino or De Niro. So I wrote it in different fonts, and so it was going to be Adam Cordero for a while, spelled with a Q. Yeah, so that's primarily what Stephen Dorff and Ethan Hawke were like hitting it big right when I was starting, and so I kind of thought, those guys, that's what I want to do, and in a lot of ways, I still want to be Ethan Hawke. I mean, who doesn't,
That must be so intimidating as an actor going out for those roles, and you're like in a room full of these like crazy handsome men.
Yeah.
You're a handsome guy yourself. But a whole room full of you guys.
Yeah, it was so depressing. It's such a, I went to a 2-year acting academy and then just hit the streets, just trying to get auditions. Like I was done by the time I was 20 and went out and started a professional career. And it's just tough. Starting out, I didn't know a soul in show business, so I was just like doing extra work. Like I didn't know what to do. I just was trying to get acting jobs. And you're right. You would go to auditions, these cattle calls, and it was a bunch of guys with long, greasy hair, smoking cigarette. 1993, 4. So everyone was like, had their Eddie Vedder corduroy jacket on and smoking, and it was crazy.
How tough was that to push through? How were you able to push through that time?
I got just enough work that I was encouraged along the way. I was able to eke out a living from it, but just barely. And there's a certain amount of self-delusion that you have to push yourself to maintain and to convince yourself that things are going well. But then once my career actually started, which wasn't until, for real, my career didn't really start in a 100% tangible way till like 5-6 years ago. So, that's a good 15 years where I was just sort of telling myself everything was great. And then when it actually did start, I was able to look back and think, oh boy, that was not, it actually wasn't happening. I have been stringing myself along here for a pretty good amount of time.
Did the vulnerability of those experiences, do you think that's helped you?
Yeah, probably. Probably. It was painful at times. That's for sure. There were a lot of tough moments.
You've certainly found your footing in comedy, but is there any part of you that still wants to have that Ethan Hawke type of career?
I like doing all kinds of different stuff, and I kind of take it on a project by project basis. I love comedy, but I love doing other stuff too. So I've been lucky so far that I get to do a mix of the two.
I had your Parks and Rec colleague Nick Offerman on the show.
Oh, cool!
Recently,
yeah.
He talked about how special of an experience that was working on Parks and Rec.
Yeah.
For you, was it the same?
Yeah, for sure. We none of us ever took it for granted. I think we all knew how special it was and how lucky we were to be on a show that's that great and has that much heart and is that like bitingly funny. That's just, you can't get better than that.
He spoke of the people involved too, and just people cared about each other and they were good people.
Yeah. It was like Pawnee over there, it really was. It was all love and over there, but it wasn't just, sunshine and mushy feelings for each other. It was also biting comedy. Those writers, some of the best satire, political satire that's been on TV. I think that room of writers, Mike Schur and all those people created some of the best. There were some of the best writers around, and so it was a real honor to be on the show. And we all miss it, but I think it also ended at a good time because the show was still great. And how cool is that we'll always be able to look back and know that it never, got terrible.
And everybody's on to very exciting things.
Yeah.
Congratulations on this new movie.
Thanks, man.
Thanks, Adam.